Welcome to the LARRAPY Love, Life, and Spirituality podcast, where we explore the philosophies, the experiences that shape how we love, live, and grow spiritually. I'm your host, Larry Jackson. Today, we're honored to have special guest, Gayle. We're excited to have you.
Nice
Um,
to be here.
let's begin with just a general basic question. Who are you? What have you been doing lately? Um, I know that your major project is Moolah University, so I just want to give you an opportunity to speak on that.
Sure. Well, who I am, first of all, is my the sister of your friend from way back when.
Yes.
Just discovered uh, doing some really important work you guys did with what she did with kids in high school and creating community for spirituality to bloom. I thought that
Yeah.
was really fun, and she and I had a lot of times talked about how do we really serve kids? How do
Yeah.
we serve the next generation? Once you have kids and once you're started thinking about like, okay, what is it going to look like for them, and who do I want to be to produce that result in their lives?
Yeah.
Like, what context are we creating for the next generation? So underneath everything is really that. Like, we're here, and whatever impact we make while we're here is going to get transferred to the next generation. So, how do we carefully curate that world, right?
Yeah.
Where everyone can flourish. That's kind of where I come from. And um, the background, since I mentioned my sister, is that my parents were very much like that.
Mm.
Total givers and volunteers, and everybody, everything that they saw, like human suffering or human need, they were there.
Yeah.
And we were right there with them. And so there's just a real hurt for we're not here alone.
Yeah.
We're
Um,
not we're not singularly uh, divined here. We're here part of a community of humans in the universe. So anyway,
yeah. How did Moolah University come about? I mean, you
okay,
talked a little bit about it.
yeah, right. So I had a child, and I was uh, I was a little bit older when I had her, and I was a little more wise about sort of finances or certain things at least, and I was in an investment club with some of my girlfriends. We would pool our money and buy stock. Mostly, we just kind of drank wine and chanted and threw darts, but we learned a lot about stocks and about money and like not even the stock market, but how does value get created?
Mm.
How do you use money to create value, whether it's more money or services to people
Mm.
and then that kind of led into entrepreneurship, which is, well, what is, we use money to exchange, it's an exchange of value, and
Hmm.
that value can be exchanged in many ways.
Mm.
uh, and so when you really boil it all the way down to that, it becomes a much different conversation. And
Hmm.
so this kind of my daughter was coming when after I had her, she was coming to the meetings, the monthly meetings with my girlfriends and listening to all this. And she was in about second or third grade. And she's like, I want to have an investment club at
Mm.
my school. And I ran the brownie troop. I'm like, I could do that. And then I went looking for like curriculum or somewhere is how do you talk to kids about money? How do you teach money? And there were a lot of excuse me, a lot of sort of teaching curriculum, which was like, let me tell you about the rule of 72 and here's how interest works. And I tried some of that stuff out, and these were like second and third graders, and they were just like rolling around on the floor like they didn't want anything to do with that. It had no context for them. And
Mm.
so my mom and my daughter's Montessori teacher and I went to get help, and they were like, you need to find out what's interesting to them. Go ask them, what do they want to know about money?
Mm.
And so we spent a couple of sessions really exploring it, did some games and stuff, but just got them talking about what were they curious about,
Yeah.
and where were they getting stuck when we were doing things? Like, what were they didn't quite understand or needed to have some coaching around? Anyway, came up with this theory, and it's been proven now over 25 years that what kids really are asking for is, why do we need money? Why
Yeah.
isn't everything free? What is it for? How does it work? How
Hmm.
does value get exchanged?
Mm. Yeah.
And when like I said, when you boil it all the way down to that, it becomes a much different conversation. And so we started playing games with money that had them doing exchanging of value. And one of those was we did some business projects in this little club.
Mm.
And, they'd make something and then they'd sell it out in front of the school at the end of the day, or, they'd spend a couple of weeks sometimes on these projects. And
Yeah.
that turned into a camp. The kids were like, we want to do a bigger version of this. Like they wanted a whole week of it. And
Wow.
so I didn't know anything about this. I am not a teacher.
Yeah.
Never was very oriented toward kids till I had one. And I'm not a financial person. I'm not a financial planner or any of that. No training in any of that. So it was kind of fun because we got to just make up what worked. What
Yeah.
worked to have them actually get this question answered for themselves.
Yeah.
And so the camp meant that they were going through an accelerator. So Monday they start as a group of kids. This was when it was live. It was different, but 20 kids in a room coming up with an idea of one business that they would do that week. So really heavy ideation. And a lot of it was going out and talking to the customers.
Yeah.
And finding out what the people that were walking by their little stand would want. And the camps were in all kinds of different places. So it was always a different, there was no answer like you're going to have a lemonade stand. It's like, go find out what people will pay you for.
Right.
Because if you don't make something that they want, they're not going to buy it.
Right. But the kids spoke to this. I mean, it started out as very much the kids have spoken kind of issue. It looks like as the development of it came through the voice of the kids.
Yes.
But you initially did the market research for it. Like you went straight to the kids and says, how would you prefer this type of information to be presented to you?
Right. You've got to be able to fill a need. So they had a need for a certain kind of experience or learning. And then I also interviewed all these parents and I like, what are you struggling with? What do you wish your kids knew? What are the challenges that you see for yourself actually helping your kids be good with money? And so I kind of morphed all that into this camp. And the camp was kind of a hobby, honestly, Larry. I still had another business that I was working in, that it was flexible enough for me to just kind of have some fun with this. But it just kept growing. And, before we knew it, we had like 50 camps in the summer. There's only 10 weeks. That's 5 camps a week in different locations all over the city. And it was really massive and big.
Wow.
And we were featured on the front page of the Wall Street Journal right after the 2018 crash.
Wow.
Everybody was panicking about, oh my God, our kids are going to inherit this. And so then we got interest from all over the world. And I went into an accelerator and came out with a franchise model. And we sold franchises. So the camp was now in cities across the US. And so that was fun. And that lasted for a while until COVID. And then for 2 years, we couldn't do live camps, essentially. And so we just had to fold that division. It was troubling. But what we did here in Austin, we were about to have a huge event called South by Southwest every spring. It's huge. And the weeks leading up to it, I could see that it was like people were pulling out, speakers were pulling out, and it was like, then the city shut it down. And I sat there thinking, I've got 200 kids signed up for camp this summer in my location in Austin. And I said, what am I going to do? What are these parents going to do? Right? You got to meet the needs of the people. So I gathered my team, and some of those were past graduates of the camp who still hung around and loved it and served as coaches and whatnot. And we revised it in 3 weeks, and we launched our first one virtual the week of spring break. And it just went crazy from there. So then everybody in the world needed virtual. So that was a really good demand. And we ended up in 6 different countries. And I like to say two languages, but 3 languages, because one of them was Australian. And that's a funny language. It's sort of English. But anyway, that was great. So the virtual camp continues. We're having our last session starting Monday. There's still time to sign up. The kids go through an entire week of camp, just like of starting a business, just like in an accelerator. First, you find out who's got a problem you can solve. Can you solve it? How would you solve it? How can you make money at that? How are you going to market it? And then on Friday, they pitch.
Oh,
They actually have been producing a slideshow the whole week, and we bring investors in, and it's all virtual, but they pitch, and these pitches are polished, some of them, and sometimes it's just for a lemonade stand, but they understand the entire process of using money to make money. And
does it?
throughout camp, we're talking about what do you do with that money when you get it? How can you be the best steward of that money? Because right now, most kids, the experience they have of money is that their parents pretty much pay for everything, and they don't have a lot of choice or power in it, except that they can ask more often for something if they really, really want it.
Yeah.
And sometimes their parents will say, well, you save your allowance, but then, there's not a real context around how much money they're getting and what they're supposed to use that for. So how will they know how much to save or how to save? And then the real best way to do that is, well, how can you earn some of that money for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we love entrepreneurship. Like, what can you do to bring value? Because
Yeah.
if you can produce value, whether it's doing chores for the neighbor or doing an extra chore around our house, but you're not getting paid to brush your teeth or put the dishes in the dishwasher. That's living here. We don't pay for that, but we'll pay for other things. So
Mm-hmm.
we really want that to be the thought that they come away with, is that they can create value anywhere.
Yeah. How much is the program? How much? I've got a kid. I got two kids, ages. How old is Luke and Gabby right now? I think it's like 12 and 14.
Oh, they're the
Um,
perfect age for camp.
how much does the program cost? How much is that?
Oh,
How
it's
much for
only
that one thing?
$25, and it's online, so parents don't have to drive their kids anywhere. And there's 3 calls a day. So in the
Mm,
morning we introduce a new concept, like, hey, okay, we're going to do customer research today to see what people's problems are.
yeah.
And by
How
the
much
second,
is it?
425.
425. That's not bad. Is it per kid? I'm assuming, right?
We
425
have
per kid.
we have sibling discounts. We'll talk about that.
Ah,
Yeah.
all right. Yeah. I'm
But I
sorry.
mean, it's the most valuable camp. And here's the best part: at the end of the camp, I mean, there's the whole camp is great. I'm get off the calls. There's 3 calls each day, and at the end of each call, I'm just almost in tears because of who these kids are being. Like,
Yeah.
they're stepping out into doing really brave and courageous things and taking risks and having their ideas just flourish. You can just see this magic happening. But anyway, on Friday at the pitches, the parents and the grandparents and the friends are all on the call. We have this full screen of people. And
Yeah.
at the end, we ask anybody for feedback on how they felt their kid did, or what was their experience of having their kid go through the camp.
Mhm.
And I produce video clips of these all the time because these parents just go on and on and on.
Right.
And they specifically speak to the growth that they saw their child have that was different than anything they've seen from a school project. This is project-based learning, and we want to
Mhm.
we want to try to do that in the school, but it's very difficult to do in school because you're in a class for an hour. But here they have a whole week to totally dive in and take something from start to finish, and they're using every potential topic you would be learning in school. They're learning, communications with people, customer research. They're learning math, doing the
Right.
finance. They're learning
I
supply chain
love it.
management. Like, where am I going to get the lemons to make the lemonade? They're learning commerce and process of money flow. They're learning how to present and get their ideas across to people, and then to be excited about it enough to try things and take risks, which you can't really do in school. You got to get the good grade.
Right.
You can't take the risk. And these parents speak to that really powerfully. You
Mhm.
know, they'll tell us, well, they tried something and it didn't work. And then we hear about the tears. But this is life. This is how we learn. This is how we not just learn, like gain information, learn. This
Right.
is how we learn how to live.
Right.
You want to call them life skill, but it's basically life, right? Like, how do we go out into the world and create things of value and serve other people?
Yeah. That's very much Montessori-like philosophy,
Hmm.
uh, and approach, kind of, which I love. We wanted to get our daughter into Montessori school so bad, simply for that type of learning, type of exchange and approach. Kind of is what does the child gravitate towards in their environment, and how do they learn? How they experience experientially learn in their environment. Um,
Because
yeah,
you're only going to learn and engage in learning or understanding something unless if you're interested.
yeah,
So, you know, you could tell me all day how to, you know, change a tire, but I don't care. You
right.
know, I'm not going to learn it. Anything we do in life, it's because we're curious and we want to flourish that curiosity. But I will say something, Larry. After listening to all these parents all these years, we put together some parent courses that talk specifically about how to structure some money experiences so their kids can learn. But our larger parent coaching program, which we've launched now, and there's a series of different webinars and 5-day challenges, but the jewel in the crown is this 3-month coaching program that takes parents all the way through all this methodology of learning. And
Hmm.
we're using money as the content for what they're learning, having to help their children learn. But
Nice.
it's very Montessori training. It's really about how do we create autonomy for our
Hmm.
kids, because self-determination,
Hmm.
right? What we want to raise are self-determined kids who know how to get out in the world and manage themselves and make good choices and know how to make choices, period.
So,
And there's 3 legs to that. And this is really important. And this will help any parent listening, and you can apply this everywhere, which the first one is this autonomy, right? When our kids are begging us and pestering and fighting against us over things, it's because they want autonomy. They want their own ability to choose, make choices. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to struggle and try to figure some of it out. They want to make some mistakes. They don't think about it that way, but they just want to go out there and get on the court.
yeah.
And when we stifle that is when we start to get the rebelliousness and the difficulties.
Hey,
Or when they're allowed to have that within parameters and safely,
right.
oh my gosh, they just bloom.
Yeah.
I learned
Yes.
it by mistake, honestly. I'll tell you a story
Mm.
about that. My daughter was, came home from school and she was really hungry. And I was working. I'd started this company and I was working. And I said, I don't know. She said, what's for dinner? I said, I don't know. What are you making? And she was like 11. And she got on her bike and she went to the grocery store and she came back and she got on the computer and she started cooking some stuff and she really got into it. And now she's an amazing, um, you know, she's totally into food and creating great food. And uh,
Mm.
yeah, very independent. So that autonomy is really important.
Yeah.
They need to know they can solve their own problems and they need
Yeah.
to try and they need to go ahead and make mistakes. The
Yeah.
second leg to that is competence, which is what they're building. They're
Mm.
building sort of a knowledge base of, oh, yeah, if I jump off the roof, I might break my arm. It happened last time. You know,
Mhm.
all of these little things that just pile. That's how we become who we are.
Yeah.
So we rob them of those opportunities to build that competence. They're going to be adults, young adults, not understanding at all what they're supposed to, how it works. So they need
Yeah.
to get on the court and try it out, and they need to build that competence themselves. And then the third leg is truly relatedness. Like, who are we being, Larry? Who are you being as a dad when your kids come to you at this age? Because they're old enough now to be really probably wanting tons of autonomy. And who
Mhm.
do you be in the face of that? So I'm not asking you to tell me how, but that's where we have to come in as parents and
Mhm.
become their mentors
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not their managers.
Yeah.
We've been
Yeah.
managing everything for them because we love them and we don't want them to struggle. And we've robbed them of the opportunity to truly learn through practice.
Yeah.
And so, if you can consider being a mentor, like how would you treat another adult who was struggling or had a question about something or asked you something? You would walk them through some solutions and you would let them come up with their own, and you wouldn't tell them, here's what you should go do. That's not mentoring. So
Right.
we want to move from that managing, telling them what to do and managing all of their choices and decisions and keeping them safe. It's
Yeah.
hard. But we can't just protect them. We can't wrap them in bubble wrap and then send them out into the world when they're 18.
Yeah. Yeah. The word I think of is guided autonomy. I think you spoke of it earlier. I
Yeah.
think if you said structured autonomy, but the idea that we're not superimposing ourselves on them. We're trying to guide them in a general direction and allowing them to then create their own unique experiences within a little bit of healthy guidance. So I like that. I like that energy.
So we
Um,
do the parent courses that use that primary that model to help them understand how to move through that with their kids around money. but it applies to everything. They see that they can take those ideas into most every other aspect of their relationship with their child. So that's been a real gift.
I want to shift the questions a little bit. I want to learn a little bit more about you, as it relates to specific questions I have in mind on my end. Life is filled with twists and turns. Can you share a memorable life experience that challenged or helped shape you and made you who you are today?
There's so many. I don't know which one I want to share, but I think I did sort of share about the situation when I had a kid. First
Right.
of all, that was a challenge in itself. She was not my first baby. I lost a few before that, and that was very challenging. And I don't share that much, other than to say, like, wow, I kept going. It's one of those. I'm glad I had the resiliency to push on. And but then I got her, and I was like, oh, now what do I do? I was, like I said, a little bit older, and I was like, I watched all my friends raise children, and I'm like, ooh, this is a lot harder than it looked. And so there were so many challenges, and I did have lots of friends whose kids had gone to Montessori, and I had this group of friends that I had become friends with. Actually, we all bought houses in the same neighborhood as a way of sort of building our own community, which was super fun because the kids could run wild and do things. But the challenge of starting a company, and I was now a single mom at this point, and I'd bought a house, so I was, I had responsibilities, and I was like, boy, I bit off more than I can chew. And the ability to just push through that and find the resources, and it all came from the community. People were there, and before I would even ask, almost. And things were showing up that were, sort of miraculous. And it was just, I was in so much gratitude the entire time. And I realized that this is how the world works. And I really want to make sure that I can give back and support other people, and even when they're not asking for help, but put things out there in the world that make it life better for everyone. And I think the primary thing I come away from all that with is that, like I said earlier, we're not alone. We're all part of a universe that can only work if we're all thriving. So that's kind of been the overarching goal for me, is to reach that. And I operate inside of a sort of a mantra of why am I here? And why I'm here is to end the suffering of scarcity. And it shows up in a lot of different ways. It took me a while to get there. Went through my own courses of scarcity and the mindset that comes with that. And I also realized that happened very young. You build those things young. So this is why I want to start with these kids now. They can see there is no such thing as scarcity. We eliminated, it's only a mindset anyway.
That's right. Poverty mindset. Right.
It's a mindset. And what if kids are like, I can create money whenever I want?
Right.
That's what they come out of the camp with. So the challenge that I went through and sort of overcoming that for myself, and then making sure my daughter didn't have that, is probably the most diligent I've ever been about working on a very deep problem, or finding a solution to that. Yeah.
Love is one of the most powerful forces in the world. It shows up in many forms. Can you share a moment of love or kindness that deeply impacted you, either personally or something you've witnessed?
Ash, these are deep questions. Yeah.
I
think that I think that the love from my parents was, I did not know how deep it was until I became a parent. I just think that that's something we can all strive for, is to love someone so much that they know themselves as loved.
How has your parents' love shaped you?
Well, they believed in me even when I didn't. And that isn't true for all parents. They wouldn't make me wrong when I wasn't doing what they thought I should be doing. They were very kind in redirecting and helping me sort things through, but they uh, they didn't rescue me. I would say it was probably their biggest gift.
Mm.
They didn't come in and manage it and tell me how I should be doing it or fixing it for me. They're like, you got this. You go figure this out. If you need some ideas, we're here to brainstorm with you.
Yeah.
So that was a really unique kind of love that I felt like um, it gave me strength. There's,
Yeah.
there's a kind of love that makes other people responsible for your happiness.
Yeah. Is that in fact tough love, or is it different from tough love?
It was totally kind love.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the kind of love that I had to do something in order to have their love.
Yeah.
They loved me and they said, you're on your own path and we're here. We've got your back if you want to talk or help. We're not abandoning you. No, there was never anything like that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't tough. It was just, for instance, my mom, when I was doing this course, and, I told you a little bit about her at the beginning, and she was a special ed teacher. And this is where my sister and I got all of our interest in this. But when I was doing the first clubs, I was like, I don't know how to do this. Like I said, there were curriculum that had these lessons, typical school kind of curriculum. And I needed something more playful and more interesting and more tangible where kids could get a real context for something. And I was struggling and I called my mom and she's like, I'm on it, and she was just like, let's work. And we had so much fun together, and we were coming up with these games and we were testing them on people. And she was
Nice.
there, but she didn't come to me and say, here's what you should be doing, or you're not doing this right. Or she just
Yeah.
didn't, her love for me was just, she had fun with me.
Yeah.
I never
Yeah.
felt tough. Of course, when I was a teenager, they wouldn't let me do things. It felt tough, but they were putting the right parameters in to make sure I was staying in my lane.
Yeah. Sound like you had some great parents.
Yeah, they were really amazing. And like I said, I think one of the challenges has been losing my mom because I just cherished our relationship so much. But until we're a little older, we don't appreciate that as much. And now I can see how that kind of parenting really allowed me to become who I am.
There's an interesting story, a movie that I can see you playing in the background here, of a young woman who has a great circle of community, has great parents, but she still is going through her own bouts of being a single mother and experiencing the trials and tribulations, but also experiencing um, the support through those situations. I hear that storyline lingering in the background. Maybe I'm looking too far into it.
What's the movie?
The movie is It's All About Gayle. So I'm talking about you.
Okay. That's a whole new career for me. I guess you're to be an actress or whatever. Yeah.
And then
It is. And it's think about that, Larry. This is the whole point, is who we are for other people is we're lingering in the back saying, yay, cheerleading people.
Yeah.
And that is very hard to maintain in an environment, especially the climate we're in now, where there's so much angst and anger and separation and division. And
Yeah.
like the only way to heal that, or the only way to keep us going in the right direction of humanity, is to consistently celebrate each other.
Yeah. 100%.
No matter what.
Yes. I hear that coming from the perspective of someone who may be carrying on the legacy of her mother.
I hope I am. They were the most powerful presence in the universe to me. Yeah. I think most people think that way about their parents later on, possibly.
Yeah, possibly. I feel like I need a part two, but we'll maybe have an after conversation on this. How can people connect with you? How can people support your work? I'll put some of your information in your feed there, and I'll try to add some information to it after this.
Well, right. Well, if you're watching live, you'll want to go to our website, moolahu.com, and that's MOOLAHU, all one word, .com. And there's a page there that talks about our business camp, which starts tomorrow, and there's still time to sign up, and we have a few spaces left. It's a week of absolute intensity and fun and growth. These kids they grow. They literally physically grow in a week.
Thanks.
And then the website also has our parent courses. You can click a link to find our pre-recorded self-directed courses. And then we'll be launching it again. We paused for the summer, but our parent coaching. And
Yeah.
there'll be a 5-day challenge coming up where parents can try some things out at home with allowance and money with their kids. And then there's webinars, and we have a 3-month coaching program. So those would be the best ways to reach out. My name is Gayle Reaume, and my information's on there, and you can reach out and contact me directly.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to look into it. I've been looking into it probably over the years, but I'm right now I'm educating my kids on my business, my business, because I want to hand some of the stuff out to my kids. So teaching about money is very important to me right now. I'm just on a personal level.
Yeah.
I will probably look through your stuff a little bit throughout this year here to see how I can engage a little bit more. And also tell your sister I said hello.
I will.
She was a very special individual to me, and she'll know. We were like this. She was such a wonderful person.
Yeah.
But the last question that we'll end with is what would you like to leave us with as far as the final word, scripture, or affirmation?
Well, there's a couple of quotes that I really like that sort of reflect our place in the world regarding that value. And they're both from Warren Buffett, which, he's a brilliant man and a great human, brilliant finance guy, but also just a really great human. And one of them is, golly, one of them is investing, which you'll love, and this isn't from him, but the best time to plant a tree is 5 years ago, and the next best time is today.
Yes.
But the other one he's got is someone is sitting in the shade today because long ago someone planted a tree.
Hey.
And you apply it to money, which is where his mind is, but it's human. It's who we are. We plant the seeds for future generations to have fantastic lives as well.
Yeah.
And then there's one more Warren Buffett quote, which is, again, not about humanity, but if you aren't making money while you sleep, you're going to work until you die. So the idea of just consistently creating value.
Yes.
Like that, it's not like a job. I got this job, I've got this money, and this is who I'm defined as, and then I'll retire, which is not a bad plan, but ultimately we want to continue to create value and provide that for humanity our whole lives. That's why we're here. So be my last thing to say.
Amen to that. Gayle, it was nice meeting you. I want to end on that note. You have a great day. God bless you. And hopefully we'll talk soon.
Thank you.